everyone, it's Kate, and today we're going to be talking about the classic interview question, tell me about yourself. This was actually suggested by a comment, so if you have other ideas, make sure to leave them below. But this interview question is oftentimes the first question that we're ever asked. And there's a few ways to approach it, but what I recommend is a three-part approach. First, you have your personal background. Second, you have your experiences, both personal and professional. And third, you have something notable. Now, with your personal background, that is super easy. It's just your basic introduction. Your name, your major, your school, and your hometown if you want to. Obviously, if you've already graduated, then just name and hometown will suffice. When it comes to experiences, you're talking about both personal and professional. And as college students, a lot of times those personal experiences will look like campus involvements. And when you graduate, that might look more like community involvement or volunteer work. But for both personal and professional experiences, you really want to highlight certain things over others because you might have a lot of different experiences, but this interview question is not meant to be super long. You'll go more in depth with the questions that they ask later in the interview. So with that, you want to be strategic about which ones you highlight, and you can do that by picking and choosing the experiences that tie most closely with the role or the ones that you are most passionate about. And when it comes to talking about things that you're passionate about, it is super helpful for you, especially since this is often the first interview question, because it helps you to kind of relax. Interviewers can tell when you're talking about something that you're passionate about because you get more excited, you don't use as many filler words, you're just more comfortable talking about that subject. And so it can help to expel some of that nervous energy by specifically choosing something that you're passionate about, even if it's not as relevant to that role. And of course, the final part of this three-part approach is to talk about something notable. And what I usually do is use a fun fact. For example, I talk about how I really am obsessed with popcorn. And people love that. It normally gets a little bit of a laugh. And I have even had an interview completely derail, and we just talked about popcorn for the rest of the interview after I brought that up, and I got invited to do a second round. So fun facts, I recommend them. They bring the personality and show the person behind the candidate and helps answer how are you as a coworker, how are you as a friend, would you be a valuable contribution to their organization, would people like being around you essentially. And obviously don't use a fun fact if you are in a more serious environment and the interviewers might not take as kindly to it. And in that case, you could use something notable such as talking about a personal tie to the interview or an aspiration or an interesting perspective that you might have. So questions that you might ask yourself to find something notable to talk about is there a unique personal philosophy that you hold? What does this interview mean to you? Or how does this role tie to your dream job? A summarized one-sentence answer to any of these questions can serve as a really solid closer to your Tell Me About Yourself. For some general rules, make sure that your answer to Tell Me About Yourself is no more than 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. It's not meant to be a super long question because it's just the start, and you want to leave time for your other interview answers where you will go more in depth about the impact that you have had and further showcase why you'd be a good fit for the role. A common mistake is accidentally including too specific of information when talking about your experiences. And what this does is potentially hurts how the interviewer perceives your experiences because you, through talking about these experiences in depth multiple times, are trivializing the impact that you've had. And impactful insights and statistics hit hardest when they're the first time that they're heard. And so leave it for later in the interview when you are going to talk more in depth about that experience. Essentially, you want to stick with an overview of what was the role, your title, the organization, and a basic explanation of your responsibilities or the experience's significance. And the most important tip is just to be genuine. You don't want to talk about anything in your Tell Me About Yourself that you are not willing to talk about for maybe hours on end after that, because there are a lot of interviewers that use the tell me about yourself as a jumping off point, where they might ask to follow up on certain things that you've mentioned in that tell me about yourself, like what happened with me with popcorn. So just be careful not to mention anything that you can't talk about for a long time after that, because then interviewers will start to question why you brought it up in the first place. If you need further preparation tips, make sure to check out this video, and just as one of the key ones that's mentioned in that video, you can record yourself answering this question of tell me about yourself in order to see how long it is, understand what works, what doesn't work, what you want to add or take away, anything like that. And just make sure that you are fine-tuning that answer, because if you have not been asked this yet, you definitely will be at some interview in the future. I hope that was helpful, and thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you have any suggestions on future videos or topics that I should talk about. And of course, good luck on your interview.